So welcome back. So in the last lecture, we were discussing about the Jokralski technique for single silicon crystal growth. So that we have done, all the discussion we have already done. So now I would like to discuss few more points which I forget the last time to let you know. So the point is, while growing the single silicon crystal using Zucralesky process, if we want to add certain impurities, then that impurity can also be added uh, within the charge. Okay. So I told you, if you remember this picture, okay. So within this particular crucible, okay, when we placed our charge, okay, we had placed our charge. So within this charge, we can also add our impurities. Okay. And when we heat up, then it will also become molten state. So it will be available within this molten silicon. So that way we can controllably, we can add our charges. That add our dopants. Okay. So we can add the dopants within this crucible. Fine. So this is one of the point that I wanted to tell you. So now just come back to our discussion. Okay, so few more points that I want to let you know about this Zucralski process. So one point that I told you about, a suitably oriented seed crystal that we need to have. Okay, so that we need to have a particular suitably oriented seed crystal. So we will be talking about today what is seed crystal and basically what we mean to say this orientation. Okay, so that we have to discuss today, so that I will going to explain you in detail. And the few more points that I want to tell you is about Zucralesky process. As I told you about the impurities that could be added in the process of drawing the ingot. So that was your oxygen and your carbon. Okay, so that I told you that the carbon and oxygen will be incorporated while drawing the single silicon crystal, because it will be done using the molten state of the silicon, and because the molten state of the silicon is present in the crucible is made itself of SiO2. Okay, so silicon dioxide. So some of the oxygen will come from the SiO2, because it will also dissolve into the molten silicon because of the temperature. So oxygen will be also incorporated, and some of the carbon, because we are using the graphite heater. Okay, so some of the carbon will also be incorporated into the molten silicon. So you can see these numbers. Okay, the order of oxygen that will be available in the your silicon single silicon crystal is the order of this much. Okay, you can see this number, 10 to the power 70 to 10 to the power 18 per centimeter cube. And similarly, you can have the carbon level of the order of 10 to the power 15 to 10 to the power 16 number of carbon atoms per centimeter cube. Okay, so this is its volume density, right? Volume density of your oxygen level. So these are the impurities that will be incorporated. Even in the last time I explained that this oxygen is actually not always disadvantageous. Fine. So this oxygen is sometimes giving you certain advantages. So what are those advantages? So first advantage is this oxygen is actually giving you mechanical, means it is providing a mechanically strengthening of the silicon crystal. Okay, so it is giving you mechanical strength to your silicon. Okay, silicon crystal will become mechanically strong due to the presence of oxygen. The other thing that oxygen is giving as an advantage is about the gathering. Okay, in gathering the other impurities during device fabrication. So to understand what is the gathering, so we need to understand first, because by fabrication of our any semiconductor component like MOSFET or BGT or any other device, any other component, okay, we need to go through large number of steps. Okay, we need to go through a large number of steps, and that step I have not described, but that steps includes like oxidation, like etching process, like diffusion process, like deposition process. Okay, so many steps are there, and that time your entire substrate will be exposed to different chemicals, right? So when it is exposed to different chemicals, there is a chances that these chemicals may enter into your silicon substrate. Okay, and it may also enter into the devices. Okay, so that particular chemicals, or you can say whatever the compositions or whatever the chemicals that we are using, if it is going into your device, it will further contaminate it. Fine. So if we want to stop these contamination, what we need to do, basically this oxygen, what it do is, it is acting like a trap. Okay, this oxygen atoms which is actually available in the silicon, it will be acting like a trap for your some unwanted impurities. So what it does is actually trapping those impurities. So when it is trapping those impurities, you can understand that the surrounding of the oxygen, okay, will be having the most of the impurities, unwanted impurities, right? And thereby your entire bulk silicon will not be become impure. It will be means it will be able to maintain the purity of the silicon. Fine. So you can understand this fact from this discussion, like we are having 10 to the power 18 per centimeter cube oxygen atoms. Okay. And I told you about that the silicon is actually containing 10 to the power 22 silicon atoms per centimeter cube. So what does it mean? Still your silicon is 99.99% pure. Okay. You can compare these numbers, right? So it is still 99.99% pure. Fine. So basically what oxygen does is, oxygen is acting like a trap for your other unwanted impurities, and because of that your entire silicon will not become impure. Whenever it enters into the silicon, it will be actually trapped by the oxygens. Wherever the oxygens are available, at those points your impurity will get trapped. Okay, and your other silicon part, or you can say the other volume or other spaces within the crystal will be still pure. Okay, so that's why we are saying that this oxygen is actually advantageous. It is giving you mechanically strengthening the silicon crystal and also getting the other impurities. One more point that I want to tell here is that about the CJET process. Okay, this CJET process, as I mentioned, that it was invented in 1918, but for single silicon crystal growth or germanium crystal growth, it was actually used first by one of the scientists whose name was Till. Okay, and he used this particular technique in year somewhere around 1950s. Okay, so now up to this point we have done about how the Joukowski process of crystal growth take place. Okay, now today we have to basically focus on what is the crystal orientation that we have to look at. Okay, so just try to understand that concept because it is very important. Fine. So basically what we mean to say by a crystal orientation or crystal planes. Okay, so let us say I'll start just to give the explanation about it. I will start with a cubic crystal lattice. So let us say that we are having a cubic crystal lattice of this kind. Fine. So when we have our cubic crystal lattice of this kind, okay, what we can see is within this particular, if it is a unit cell of any particular element, then what we have to see in this particular cubic cell, you can have the particular arrangement of the atoms. So like the atoms may be sitting at the corners, okay, it may be at the corners, right? At the corners, atoms may be sitting at the corners, it may be sitting at the in the middle of the front face, side faces, top faces, okay, face centered, or it may be a body centered. Okay, so this type of different means unit cells we have. Okay, so I will be taking the example of a simple cubic structure, cubic lattice structure, and then I will be explaining you what is this crystal planes we mean to say. So let us say that we have a cubic lattice. Okay, whose dimensions, you can see that each dimensions is a. So you can say, I will be saying that this dimensions a in the x direction, in the y direction, and also in the z directions. Okay, and this will be called as a lattice constant. Okay, it will be called as the lattice constant. So now let us say if we want to discuss about the crystal planes. Okay, so what we mean to say the crystal plane. Fine. So first of all, if I talk about a plane, let us say, which is shown here as a shadowed region. Okay, let us say I am talking about this plane. Okay, so if I talk about this shadowed plane, then we have to talk about how to designate any name to this particular plane. Okay, why we are identifying, why we are trying to identify these planes, I will explain you later on. But first of all, you try to understand, if I want to give a particular designation, okay, how to designate this particular plane. Okay, so that we have to look at. So first of all, what we can see, we have this plane. Okay, and I can see this this particular plane is actually it is parallel to your yz plane. Okay, it will be parallel to your yz plane. So what we can see is this particular plane is cutting the x-axis. Okay, it is cutting the x-axis at a distance of a. Fine. So it is cutting the x-axis at a distance of a. Now, if we talk about what is the intercept with the y-axis or the z-axis, since it is parallel to y-axis and the z-axis, the intercept will be infinity. Okay, in both the directions it will be infinity. So let us assume that if we have this plane and we have to designate it, how to designate? So that will be done by choosing a particular Miller indices notations. Okay, so we have to first of all we have to find out what is the Miller indices for this, and accordingly we have to give the name to this particular plane. So first of all, we need to find out what is the intercept of the shadowed plane with x-axis. Okay, so basically it is having the unit distance is equals to a. Okay, so I can write that this distance is 1 cross a. Okay, I will be taking a coefficient of 1, and it is like this plane I can take at either a, 2a, 3a, and like that. Okay, we can take the planes. Similarly, I can also take the plane the backward direction, like at minus a, minus 2a, minus 3a, like that. Okay. So first of all, this plane is having the intercept of the shadowed plane is with x-axis is equals to 1 cross a. Okay. Similarly, if I want to calculate what is the intercept with the y-axis and the z-axis, that can be calculated, and it is obviously infinity. Okay, so intercept of the shadowed plane with y-axis is equals to infinity. Okay, so I could also write it this as infinity multiplied with the a. Okay, infinity multiplied with the a, because it is ultimately giving you infinite. Okay, so these are the intercepts of the shadowed plane with y-axis, z-axis, and x-axis. Okay, now to get the designation, first of all we need to get the Miller indices for this particular thing. So how to get this Miller indices? We need to calculate the reciprocal of this all coefficients. Okay, we are having the coefficients for all this intercept as 1, then infinite, and then infinite. Okay, so we have to calculate the reciprocal of all intercepts. Okay, this is 1 upon 1, 1 upon infinity, and 1 upon infinity. So once we calculate this reciprocal of all intercepts, okay, then what this value will be? This value is equals to 1, this value will become 0, and this will become 0. Fine. So this way, the reciprocal of all intercepts that we have calculated, okay, so we got the result as 1, 0, 0. So this will be called as the crystal plane. Okay, so the designation for this particular plane is 1, 0, 0. Fine. So this is its Miller indices notation. Okay, and in this Miller indices we have converted in this particular manner, and we got this particular notation 100. So what I will call now this now onwards, this shadowed plane can be designated as 100 plane. So now I will be calling it as a crystal plane, okay, or crystal orientation. Fine. So do not confuse with the direction in the crystal. Okay, there is a crystal directions. Okay, there is a crystal planes. Okay, so we are talking about the crystal planes. Okay, a similar way we can also calculate the direction, but here in the discussion we need to talk about the crystal planes. Okay, because we said that there should be a particular orientation of the seed crystal. Okay, that we need. So this will be the designation for this particular shadowed plane 100. Okay, so now one more thing that we have to consider here is I have calculated this for particular plane, this shadowed plane, we have calculated its Miller indices notation, and that is your 100 plane. Now, what we can see is because of the cubic symmetry, okay, because of the cubic symmetry, fine. If let us say one of the atom is sitting at this corner, okay, let us say, okay. So if one of the atom is sitting at this corner, then whether this particular atom is seeing this plane, okay, which is a shadowed one, or it may see this plane, okay, fine, this plane, okay, or it may see this plane, okay, all planes are equal, all planes are equal to this particular atom, okay, because it is having a cubic symmetry, okay. It does not make any difference that this plane or this plane or this plane, okay, this all three planes are equivalent, okay. So there is a spatial we can say that it is there is no variation, okay, there is no change in the behavior. Either we take this particular crystal plane or we take this particular plane or this plane, okay. So there is a symmetry, and due to this cubic symmetry all this plane behaves equally, okay, it will behave equally. So not only these three planes, what if I choose another plane at negative minus means negative y-axis? I can also take a plane at minus a at this point, and again it will be having a similar means again it will have the same behavior as this plane is having or this plane is having. Similarly, again I can take another plane that can be placed at minus z, okay, it will again have the same behavior, okay, because of the crystal symmetry. So when the crystal is having the same symmetry, okay, then what I can say is all this because of the cubic symmetry, all the planes, okay, you know that I have taken this one, so I am saying like that it is 100 plane. Similarly, if you take this one, okay, if you take this one, then there is the intercept with the y-axis, and because it is parallel to x and z, okay, so your Miller indices notation will come out as 0, 1, 0. You just follow the same procedure. This will become infinity, this will become 1, and this will become infinity. So if you take the reciprocal, you will get 0, 1, 0. So this is having a notation of 1, 0, 0. This is having the notation of 0, 1, 0. Similarly, if you talk about this, it will be having 0, 0, 1. Okay. And if I talk about a plane which is situated on the x-axis, okay, just behind this particular cube at a distance of minus a, okay, then it will be placed somewhere here, okay, at this location. We can get another plane like this, okay. So when we have this another plane means placed at x equals to minus a, and it is parallel to yz, then we can get this particular plane which is 1 bar 0 0, okay. Then in a similar way we can get 0 1 bar 0 and 0 0 1 bar. So what it means that this 1 bar is designating means it represents that this particular plane that we have taken is having the intercept at negative dimensions, okay, like x, if we go to the negative side of the x, then the intercept is actually negative, okay. So basically because of the cubic symmetry, what we can say is all these six planes, okay, that we have taken, okay, they are actually spatially invariant, okay, they are look same, means it will behave same, okay. If any atom is sitting here, it cannot see any difference between this plane, this plane or these other planes, okay. It cannot see any difference because all the planes are same because of the cubic symmetry. And therefore what we can give is we can give a combined notation, okay. So what we can say is this all different planes, okay, that is having a different Miller indices, okay, it can equivalently be represented by a single notation, which is 100. Okay, it can be represented by 100 planes. Fine. So altogether, this all different planes can have a single notation. Okay, so this will be called as 100 crystal planes. Fine, because of the cubic symmetry. So you can remember there is a particular convention of giving the notations, like I have used here parenthesis. You can see everywhere I have used the parenthesis, and here I have used the braces. Fine. So basically this braces means that this notation with the braces 100 is actually for multiple planes. Okay, this particular notation 100 is actually designating all these planes. Okay, all these planes, and because of the cubic symmetry we are saying all these planes have the same crystal plane, means it can be represented by 100 plane only. Okay, or otherwise you can separately, you can represent it as 100, it is 010 or 001, like that. Okay, so that we have to keep in mind that because of the cubic symmetry we can have these planes can be represented as 100. So similarly I can also have a different plane, like I have taken a plane like this, then I can also take the plane in this fashion. Okay, I can also take a plane like this. Okay, so if I take a plane like this, then you can think of what are the intercepts. So you can say, you can see that the intercept with the x-axis is a, with the y-axis is again a, and it will be going up to infinity in the z dimensions. It cannot intercept. Okay, so we can see this values. Intercept of the shadowed plane with the x-axis is 1 into a, then with the y-axis it is again 1 into a, and with the z-axis it is infinite into a, because it is not intersecting the y-axis. Fine. So again we can take the reciprocal of this coefficients 1 1 and infinity, so it will be 1 upon 1, 1 upon 1, and 1 upon infinity. So reciprocal of all this intercept will come out as 110. This is 110. So now what we can say that this is your 110 plane. Fine. So this I will be designating as 110 plane. Now similarly we can go on to the other plane. So other plane is like this. We can take a plane like this also. Okay, so if you take a plane like this, you can see this particular plane is actually intersecting z-axis at this particular point, and again it is intersecting at this point, and it is again intersecting at this point. Okay, all the intercepts are equal to a. Okay, so now we can write this as 1 cross a, 1 cross a, and 1 cross a. Okay, so all intercepts are equals to a. So it is something like inclined plane we have. Okay, so if we have this type of plane, again we can calculate the reciprocal of all the intercepts. Then we can get the reciprocal of all the intercept will be equals to 1 1 1. Fine, and therefore I will be calling this plane. Okay, this plane I will be calling as 111 crystal plane, or crystal orientation is 111. I hope this must be clear up to this point. Okay, now let me move on to the next problem, which is related to your crystal planes only. Okay, just for the sake of completeness I have taken this particular problem. So let us say if we have a plane like this. Okay, we can also choose a plane like this. Okay, there is no restriction. So if we take a plane like this, you can see this plane is actually intercepting your x-axis at a, and y-axis at 3a, and z-axis as 2a. Okay, so these are the intercepts 1a, 3a, and 2a. Fine. Now again we have to calculate the reciprocal of all the intercepts. So this reciprocal you will get as 1 upon 1, 1 upon 3, and 1 upon 2. So finally reciprocal of all intercept that we are getting is 1, 1 upon 3, and 1 upon 2. So in the case of Miller indices, when we want to represent a particular crystal plane, then this should be an integer. Okay, these all three digits should be an integer. It should not be like a fractional number. It should be not be like 1 upon 3 or 1 upon 2. It should be an integer. So what we need to do is convert. Okay, we need to convert these numbers into the smallest integer possible, which is having the same ratio between them. Okay, so that we need to do. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to convert it into three smallest integers having the same ratio by multiplying a suitable integer. So in this case, you can see what is the suitable integer that we can multiply. You can see 6 we have to multiply in this case. Okay, that will be giving you the smallest integer. Okay, so each number here, it will be going to multiply it with the 6. Then you will be getting this number as 6. This will be 6 upon 3, so you will be getting 2, and this is 6 upon 2, it will be coming as 3. So now I will call this plane as 6 to 3 plane. Fine. So this way basically we talk about the different planes. Fine. Different planes. We have to talk about different planes. Crystal orientation or planes, crystal planes. Okay. So means this way we can define the different planes. You can practice lots of questions related to crystal planes and the directions of the crystals. Okay. But here, because we need to talk about the crystal plane, that's why I have taken few examples. Okay. So I hope this discussion must be clear how to calculate the crystal planes. Fine. Now we have to look at the one important thing. Okay, so what are those important things is actually related to your silicon, because we have talked about the single silicon crystal growth using the Czochralski process. Fine. So in the Czochralski process, okay, we talk about the silicon. So basically what we need to see is how the silicon bonds are actually represented. So you must be aware of this particular two-dimensional diagram of the silicon, because you know that the silicon is having its atomic number equals to 14. Okay, and at the outermost orbit you will be finding the 4 valence electrons. Okay, so basically what happens is we are having a silicon atoms. Okay, and then within the silicon atoms, okay, this particular plus 4 representing you what it represents. This actually represents is plus positive 4 charges. Okay, positive charges. Okay, so what is plus 4 means? Basically it counts the total number of charges available in the nucleus and the inner shells. Okay, the outer shells is containing 4 electrons. Fine. So basically if it is denoting you inner shells plus nucleus, then you can understand in the nucleus we are having plus 14 protons. Fine. So plus 14 protons, and in the inner shells we are having total number of electrons is equals to minus 10. So if you take total positive charge as plus 14 and then the minus 10 negative charges, okay, then the net charges that will be developed is plus 4. So that's why we are showing it as plus 4. So this particular circle what it represents inner shells plus the nucleus, and therefore it is written as plus 4 everywhere. So if it is a silicon, fine. So silicon is having the outermost, in the outermost orbit we are having 4 valence electrons. So we need another silicon atoms that will be making a covalent bond. So this is represented like this. Okay, we are having another silicon atoms, okay, in the nearby places, and then it will be forming a covalent bond. So this two-dimensional representation you must be aware of, because you are studying VLSI technology. You must have gone through the electronic devices. So you must be aware of this particular picture, which is your two-dimensional representation of your silicon bonds. Okay. So now if you are aware of this particular picture, so basically it is two-dimensional representation, but it is not like this. Okay. You can see this particular atoms are actually located in this fashion. Okay, so this is your tetrahedron bond representation. So generally this particular representation is not easy to show. Okay, because when we are talking about how this silicon crystal will look like, and then when we are adding the dopants, then how this dopants will be means replacing one of the silicon atoms, and then it will be forming the bonds. So that can be easily shown by showing the two-dimensional picture, two-dimensional representation, but it cannot be easily shown by tetrahedron. But you can see these atoms are actually located in this way. Okay, you can see. So basically this is this distance, you can see if this is we are taking as the reference point like origin, then this atom is located at somewhere unit cell lattice constant is a, then it is actually located at a by 2 distance. Okay, that's why we are written as 1 by 2. Okay, okay, so it is represented at a by 2. It is located at a by 2. Okay, so this way you can say on the z axis it is again at a by 2, then again it is having a certain distance. Okay, so everything you can see, everything it is actually labeled here. Okay, what are the distances that you can see at this point? Fine. So now basically what we have to see is, you can see we have this center silicon is located at the middle of this particular cube. Okay, it is at the middle of this particular cube, and then one silicon atom is connected in this way. Okay, it is situated at the this corner of the cube, then another electron is diagonally, it is present diagonally opposite to this corner. Okay, and then again similarly at the bottom you can see one silicon atom is available at this corner, and the another silicon atom is available at this particular corner. Okay, and then you can see these are the different bonds, covalent bonds, that it will be actually making with the other silicon atoms. Okay, it will be making another means it will be making a covalent bond with the other silicon atoms. So this way we can show this is our tetrahedron bond representation of the silicon. Okay, how your silicon atoms will be located in your crystal space. Okay, in three-dimensional crystal space. Okay, so it will be located in this fashion. Okay, so that we need to remember. So basically, if you talk about what is the unit cell for your uh, silicon crystal, okay, then the unit cell of the silicon crystal, okay, it is actually taking the diamond lattice structure. Okay, this is actually your diamond lattice unit cell for your silicon. So this is not only for the silicon, but it is also for the germanium. Okay, so this is the basic unit cell of our silicon crystal. Okay, it will look like something like this. Okay, you can see this is our that tetrahedron representation. You can see again here in the middle we have the silicon, then we have connected silicons like this, another silicon atoms, it is again connected here, again it is connected here. Okay, and then it will be forming a big structure like this. Okay, so again this is our basic diamond unit cell. Okay, this is our basic diamond lattice unit cell, and what we have to do is if we want to form a bulk silicon crystal, then this particular diamond lattice cell will be repeated. Okay, if we repeat this particular diamond lattice cell, then due to large repetition we can form a bulk silicon crystal. Fine, so this particular picture you have to remember, you will find this in different books. Okay, I have taken from the Benji Streetman book. Okay, you will find this particular structure, diamond lattice structure. Okay, so basically this is our basic unit cell. Okay, of your silicon. Okay, so within the silicon crystal, we will be having this particular unit cell, and then this unit cell will be repeating to form the bulk crystal. So you can see these are the different bonds. Okay, and again this will be connected to different silicon atoms, and again a similar structure will be repeated to form the particular uh, bulk crystal. So now my question is, why we are studying this? Okay, so why we are studying this, that we have to look at. So to basically, if you understood these structures, okay, then let me ask you a certain questions. Okay, let us say I have a particular guava. Okay, I have taken this picture. Okay, so I have taken this picture from the internet. Okay, so let us say I have a guava. Let me ask you one question. Okay, and what is my question is, if let us say if I had cut this particular guava from this place. Okay, let us say I have cut it from the middle. Okay, so when I cut this guava from the middle, okay, then we can found that we can see this type of surface. Okay, let us say we have cut this particular guava from the middle, then I got this particular surface of the guava. Okay, now let me so please think about it. Let me we are interested in the number of seeds that we have exposed after cutting this guava. Okay, so let us assume that we are interested in how many seeds that we are going to expose after cutting the guava, and what will be the pattern of this particular guava seeds. Okay, so let us say that we are interested in. Fine. So when we have cut this particular guava from this place like this, okay, then vertically we have cut like this from this particular space, then we have got this particular surface, okay, in which these many of seeds are getting exposed, and it is having a particular orientation. Okay, it is having a particular orientation, particular pattern of the seeds. Now let me ask you, if I cut this guava, okay, if I had cut this guava instead of cutting like this, okay, if I had cut this particular guava in the horizontal direction like this, okay, like this, okay, if I had cut this like this, okay, then what would be the number of seeds that is going to be exposed? So my question is, what would be the number of seeds which is going to be exposed, and what will be the pattern of the seeds? Okay, so try to understand the question. The question is, I had this guava, okay, and if I had cut from like this, okay, vertically like this from the middle, okay, from the middle portion vertically like this, if I cut this, then I have got this type of surface. Okay, I have got this type of surface, and in which we are able to export a certain number of exposed some certain number of seeds, okay, guava seeds, and it is having a particular pattern. Okay, now if I had cut, instead of cutting like this, if I had cut this guava from like this in horizontal direction from the middle, okay, if I had cut like this, then what will be the number of seeds that is going to be exposed on the surface, and what will be the pattern of the seeds? Okay, similarly, I can also ask you a question. Let me cut this guava like this, okay, like this, neither horizontally nor vertically, but with certain inclination. Let me cut like this. Okay, again, if I cut it like this, then I will be able to expose the surface of the guava. Okay, some surface, I will get the some surface, okay, after cutting it like this surface. Okay, so if I had cut like this, then again, what will be the number of seeds? Okay, and what will be the pattern of the seed? Okay, so please try to understand the number of seeds which are going to be exposed, and the number of the pattern of the particular seeds, okay, or you can say the orientation of the seeds, okay, on the surface, does depend on the way we are cutting the guava. Okay, it will not be same in all the cases, and can't be. Okay, it cannot be same. Okay, if you're cutting like this, you are getting this pattern. If you cut like this, you will get some other pattern, and if you cut like this, you will get some other pattern, and you will get the different number of guava seeds. So basically what I can understand, okay, what I want to explain you all, if we have a guava, okay, the surface that we are going to get, okay, if we are interested in the number of seeds, in this case number of seeds and the pattern of the seeds, then this surface property is actually depending on uh, the way we cut the guava, whether it is vertically from the middle or it is horizontally from the middle, or we take a certain inclination and then we cut this guava like this. Okay, so it will depend on the way we cut the guava. Okay, so what we can understand, the surface will not have the same property. Okay, the surface of the guava will not have the same property if we are interested in the number of seeds in its pattern. Fine. So if you have understood this concept, Okay, if you understood this concept, now let me ask you another question. Okay, if I had a particular bulk silicon crystal, okay, if I had a bulk silicon crystal, let me ask you the same question again. If I had cut this silicon crystal like this, okay, like this, or I can cut this crystal like this, or I can cut this crystal like this, or any other possible way. Okay, if I cut this silicon, okay, then what will be the surface property that we are interested in? Okay, as in this case, I told you that let me assume that we are interested in the number of seeds and the pattern of the seeds. Similarly, we are also interested if I cut this particular bulk silicon, then the surface that we are going to expose, what will be the properties of those particular surface that we want to know. Okay, so basically we want to know if we cut this, how what will be the property of the surface, okay, that we want to investigate. Fine. So basically, as I told you, this all bulk silicon crystal is actually comprises of this type of diamond lattice unit cell. Okay, and it will be keep repeating within the material. Fine. So we can explain just by considering this shape only. Okay, because within this bulk silicon crystal, we have this particular orientation of the atoms. Fine. So now let me assume, okay, so let me assume if I had this particular unit cell, okay, though this unit cell is very small as compared to the bulk crystal, you remember this point, because we are talking about this is just a unit cell and this is your lattice constant. Okay, so when we are talking about a lattice constant, then lattice constant, you can assume what will be the lattice constant of this silicon atom. It will be the order of some angstrom, 10 to the power minus 10. Okay, it is very small thing. Okay, when we are talking about a unit cell, it is a very small thing. Fine. So you cannot compare it with the like bulk material. But just to give you a certain understanding, how we can cut this uh, particular bulk crystal. So let me say that if I have cut it from this side, from the front face, I can cut it from the front face. Okay. So because after the front face, there will be another unit cell that will be repeating, and there are so many unit cells that will be repeating in front. Okay. So let me assume that I had cut this from this particular face. Okay. Which is your 100 plane. Okay, I have already explained you. This is 100 plane. So I can either go for cutting like this, or I can go for cutting like this. Okay, or I can also go for cutting like this. Okay, these are the different ways by which I can cut the bulk silicon crystal, and then we will be able to expose the surface. Okay, we will be able to expose the surface. Okay, and then we have to ask a question, and what question we need to ask is, do the surface properties will be same in all the cases? Okay, this is what we have to answer. Okay, so when we are cutting any bulk surface, bulk silicon crystal, then whatever be the surface that we are going to expose, do all the surface will have the same property? Okay, whether we cut it like this or this way or that way. Okay, this is what we have to answer. Okay, so let me call you that, okay, what we are interested in is basically, as I told you in the last picture, in the case of guava, we were interested in the number of seeds that we are able to expose. Okay, so here we are actually interested in the number of atoms that we can that we will be able to expose after cutting the bulk silicon crystal on the surface. So what we are interested in? We are interested in how many atoms will be exposed if we cut the bulk crystal. Fine. How many silicon atoms we are going to expose on the surface, that we have to be interested in. Fine. The way we were interested in the seeds, number of seeds and their pattern. So again, we are interested here in the number of atoms and maybe the atoms as well as their orientations, how it is oriented in the surface after cutting the bulk crystal. Now you must be thinking why this surface is so important. Okay, why the surface is so important? Why we are talking about the surface properties? Okay, so we need to answer this. Why we are interested in the surface properties? Okay, so basically, why we are interested in the surface property is actually this answer lies in this fact. Okay, this is our device, and all the devices are actually manufactured near the surface. Try to see this picture. Okay, this is your NPN MOSFET. Okay, so if we have taken this particular p channel MOSFET, then you can see in this particular MOSFET, what you can see is uh, actually the MOSFET that we have fabricated, that fabricated MOSFET will be near the surface only. So it is not only this picture, but all other devices. Okay, all other devices. Okay, all other devices, whether it is a MOSFET, whether it is some other bipolar junction transistor, or it may be a capacitor, it may be a resistor, whatever you want to make, a diode. Okay, everything is will be fabricated near the surface. Okay, near the surface, and that's why what we are saying is surface property is very important to us. Okay, because once we cut this crystals, okay, once we cut the crystals, okay, whatever the surface is going to be exposed, that surface is very much important, and that's why we are saying the surface property is very much important. Okay, because all the devices is going to be fabricated near the surface. So if you have understand up to this point, then we can move on to the next slide. Okay, the next thing that we have to look at is about this different orientations. Okay, when we cut the bulk crystal like this or this way or that way. Okay, what are the different experimentally observed results are? Okay, that we have to look at. So basically, you can see we basically talk about these two planes. Okay, 100 planes, crystal planes, and 111 planes. Okay, so you can see this is actually this is already experimentally found, this crystal orientation 111. Okay, so what we mean to say the crystal orientation, if we cut the your bulk silicon crystal by having this particular plane, okay, if we cut it like this, okay, then the surface that we are going to expose, okay, it will be having the largest number of silicon atoms per centimeter square. Okay, so on the surface you can say that the surface density of your uh, largest number of silicon atoms we are saying, so it means that surface density of silicon atoms, okay, is the largest. It is found that if we choose this particular orientation, then the surface will have the largest density of your silicon atoms. Okay, it will be having the largest number of silicon atoms. Fine, if we are having 111 crystal orientation. Similarly, if we take 111 surface, okay, then 111 surface, you can see when we are having a large number of atoms, then most of them are actually having the floating bonds. Okay, because you see, as I shown here, like these bonds are actually, these are the dangling bonds. Okay, or you can say it is a floating bonds, it is not connected. So in this picture it is not connected. Okay, a similar way, when we are exposing these atoms, okay, after cutting it, then most of the atoms will not found another silicon atom to attach with. It will not be forming a bond. So that's why what we are saying is, this 111 surface is having the largest number of silicon atoms per centimeter square. Okay, and it is also having the largest number of dangling silicon bonds, floating bonds. They are not complete. Okay, they are not complete, and therefore these surfaces have the higher density of electrical defects. Okay, these are also having the highest number of means higher density of electrical defects due to the dangling silicon bonds, floating silicon bonds. So these are the two properties of your 111 surface. Then you can found that the crystal orientation 100 is having the lowest number of silicon atoms per centimeter square. Means it is having the lowest silicon atom density, okay, on the surface. Okay, on the surface, having the lowest number of silicon atoms. Fine. So these are the properties of having the different orientation on the surface. Okay, on the surface. You remember that only this surface property is going to change. Okay, this surface property is going to change. The property within this means material, the bulk property is not going to change. Here it will not change, but the surface property do changes. Okay, so that's why we are taking care about the surface. Fine. So crystal orientation 100 is having the lowest number of silicon atoms per centimeter square. Now, if these are the different properties, okay, these are the different properties, okay, then how it is going to affect uh, whether we should choose 100 or 111, okay, whether we should go for the 100 plane or we should go for the 111 plane, okay, so that we have to look at. Fine. So basically, if you see, uh, I told you about the planar process. I explained about the planar process in which what we make is we are making the uh, means we are making we do the oxidation of the silicon and it will form the SiO2 layer, okay, which is having the masking property I explained. Fine. So for doing the oxidation, we need to pass the oxygen gas at a certain ambient conditions, and then the upper surface of the silicon will get oxidized. Okay. So basically, what it has been found experimentally, that the oxidation rate is proportional to number of silicon atoms on the surface. Okay, oxidation rate is proportional to number of silicon atoms on the surface. And therefore, because this orientation 111 is having largest number of silicon atoms per centimeter square, therefore this is going to oxidize faster than 100. Okay, so that's why I have written here that the oxidation rate is proportional to the number of silicon atoms on the surface, and therefore 111 surfaces oxidize faster than 100 surface. So you please note down that I have written here braces rather than the parentheses. Okay. So it means that all those planes, okay, which are equivalent to 111 plane. I already explained about the cubic symmetry, and then I told you there are the large number of planes that can have the same Miller indices notation. Okay. So due to the similarity, okay, due to the cubic symmetry, okay, we can have the different planes, okay, we can have the different position of the planes, and yet those planes can have the same notation. Okay, so this basis means it is designating the number of planes which are having the same features or same behavior. Okay, so 111 plane oxidizes faster than the 100. This is one of the property. Okay, so your oxidation rate will be greater for crystal orientation 111. Now next we have to think again. I have not written here, but okay. So one more thing, that like this 100 silicon and SiO2 interface possess very superior electrical properties. Okay, one thing that we have to remember. So this superior electrical properties we have to investigate later. Okay, but that one fact that you have to remember is, if we are choosing 100 silicon orientation, then this this particular surface and SiO2 interface will have very excellent electrical properties. Okay, and because of that, you can find that almost all these ICs are actually having this 100 orientation. So almost all these ICs. So whatever the MOS devices we are fabricating nowadays, okay, they are all having 100 crystal orientation, that you remember. Okay, because of the electrical superior electrical properties. Moreover, when the fabrication of the ICs begins, okay, in the earlier days when IC started fabricating near about 1960, 1970s or 80s, okay, that time they used to use this 111 plane rather than 100 plane, okay, and the only reason was that the growth of the silicon crystal with 1-1 orientation was somewhat easier, okay, it is somewhat easier than to grow the 100 plane. Okay, so because the growth is somewhat easier in 111 orientation, that's why they were means they were using for all bipolar junction devices, they were using this 111 orientation. Okay, but nowadays you remember, okay, nowadays you remember even the bipolar junction transistors are using 100 plane. We rarely use 111 plane. So basically we are using 100 planes in fabricating almost all the devices because it is having certain superior electrical properties, okay, due to this interface. Fine. So you have to remember these all things, okay, what I explained about the crystal planes and why this orientation is very important, okay. So as I told you that the seed crystal should have a particular orientation, okay. So when the seed crystal surface is having this particular orientation, then whatever be the crystal that we are going to grow, okay, when we start growing it, okay, then it will be having the same crystal structure, okay, it will be having the same crystal orientation, it will having the 100 plane on the surface. Whenever we cut it, okay, parallel to it, you'll be getting a particular 100 crystal orientation on the surface. Fine. So that's why what we are saying that whenever we are growing a particular means single silicon crystal using Zuccarelli process or any other process, okay, basically we are following the Zuccarelli process, then the seed crystal should have a particular orientation so that this orientation should be transferred to the crystal, to the single silicon crystal that we are growing. So I hope something is clear up to this point. Okay. So we will be continuing from this lecture. Thank you for tomorrow. We will be continuing from tomorrow. Thank you.